The message arrived while I was elbow-deep in pie dough, flour dusting my forearms like war paint. My phone buzzed against the metal prep table, dancing closer to the edge with each vibration. I let it fall. The clatter echoed through the empty kitchen of Tom's classic diner, my diner now. "Damn it," I muttered, wiping my hands on my apron before retrieving the phone from the floor. The screen was intact, but the message waiting there hit harder than any fall could have managed. "Sutton, we need to talk. It's about your father's estate." Mom, as if she had any right to that title after 19 years of silence. I hadn't heard from Nancy since I was 9, when she traded in our family for a first-class ticket to anywhere but here. "Hey, boss, the morning rush is starting to pick up." Marcus, our newest line cook, poked his head through the kitchen door. "You good?" "Fine." I shoved the phone into my pocket, just finishing up the pies, but my hands were shaking now, leaving uneven crimps in the crust. Dad had taught me this recipe when I was 7, standing on a milk crate to reach the counter. "The secret's in the butter, kiddo," he'd say, showing me how to cut it into the flour until it formed perfect little pebbles. Dad had been gone 6 months now. The chain of diners he'd built from nothing was mine, along with everything else. There was no estate to discuss, no loose ends that needed Nancy's input. My phone buzzed again. "I have Maya with me. Your sister wants to meet you." Sister. The word felt like poison. I abandoned the pies and stepped into the walk-in cooler, letting the cold air shock my system back to reality. Through the glass door, I could see the morning regulars filing in, taking their usual seats. They'd been coming here since before I was born, had watched me grow up between these chrome-edged tables and vinyl booths. Lucas was among them, laptop open at the counter, like every other morning. My best friend, the investigative journalist who could smell a story from 3 counties away. I needed his perspective on this. I emerged from the cooler and signaled to Marcus. "Cover the kitchen for 10. At the counter, Lucas was already pushing a cup of coffee toward my usual spot. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Worse, I slid onto the stool and showed him the messages. His expression darkened as he read. "Nancy's back? After all this time? With a sister I didn't know existed." The coffee burned my tongue, but I welcomed the pain. It gave me something real to focus on. "She wants to talk about Dad's estate." Lucas's fingers were already moving across his keyboard. "Want me to run a background check?" "No." I paused. "Yes, maybe. I don't know." "Sutton." He closed his laptop. "What are you going to do?" The diner was filling up now, the morning chatter a familiar comfort. Through the pass-through window, I could see Marcus struggling with the breakfast orders. Dad would want me to help him, to focus on the business he'd built for us, for me. But Nancy's message had cracked something open inside me, something I'd spent 19 years trying to seal shut. I thought of this Maya person, this sister who shared my blood but not my memories. Did she know about me? About what her mother had done? "I'm going to meet them," I said finally, surprising myself. "But not because Nancy wants to. I need to see her face when I tell her she has no power over me anymore. And I need to know if Maya is just another one of her games." Lucas nodded slowly. "Want backup?" "No." I stood up, straightening my apron. "This is something I need to do alone. But keep digging. Nancy didn't come back after 19 years just to chat about an estate she has no claim to. She wants something, and I'm going to find out what it is before she can destroy what's left of my family." I pulled out my phone and typed a reply with steady fingers. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. The diner on 5th Street. Don't be late." I arrived at the diner an hour early, rearranging sugar packets and straightening menus like some kind of obsessive-compulsive orchestra conductor. The staff kept shooting me concerned glances. I'd never been this twitchy, not even during health inspections. At exactly 1:59 p.m., a sleek black Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. Nancy stepped out first, wearing the kind of outfit that screamed, old money trying to look casual. Her hair was shorter, grayer at the temples, but she still moved like she owned whatever space she occupied. The girl who followed her had to be Maya. My chest tightened. She had Dad's eyes. I watched through the window as Nancy said something to Maya, touching her arm in what looked like reassurance. The gesture made my teeth ache. They walked in, and the diner's ambient noise seemed to drop several decibels. Nancy's gaze swept the room before landing on me, her lips curving into a practiced smile. "Sutton." She stepped forward, arms outstretched as if expecting a hug. I stayed behind the counter, hands flat on its surface. "Nancy." The name felt like gravel in my mouth. "Have a seat." Maya hung back, fidgeting with the strap of her designer bag. She couldn't have looked more out of place in my working-class diner if she'd tried. "This is Maya," Nancy said, gesturing toward her daughter. "My sister." The words still refused to settle properly in my mind. "Hi," Maya offered quietly. She slid into the booth first, Nancy following with fluid grace. I grabbed my notepad, more for something to do with my hands than any practical purpose. "Coffee?" "Oh, we don't," Nancy started, but Maya cut in. "Yes, please. Black." I caught the flicker of surprise on Nancy's face. Interesting. While I poured their coffee, Nancy launched into what sounded like a rehearsed speech. "Sutton, I know my reaching out must have come as a shock. But when I heard about Tom's passing, 6 months ago," I interrupted, setting their cups down harder than necessary. "You heard 6 months ago and you're just showing up now?" Nancy's perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around her untouched coffee cup. "These things take time. Processing grief, making arrangements." "What arrangements?" The question came out sharp enough to make Maya flinch. "There's nothing to arrange. Dad's will was clear. About that," Nancy leaned forward, lowering her voice. "There are some matters we should discuss privately." I glanced at Maya, who was studying her coffee like it held the secrets of the universe. "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of both your daughters." The words hit their mark. Nancy's composure cracked, just for a moment before she recovered. "Very well. Tom and I never formally divorced. Legally speaking, you abandoned your family." The rage I'd been containing burst free. "You don't get to walk back in here after 19 years and start making claims." "Mom," Maya's voice wavered. "What's she talking about?" Nancy reached for Maya's hand. "Darling, it's complicated. Your father and I—" "Her father," I cut in, "raised me alone while you were off building your new perfect life. Did you tell Maya that part? About how you left a 9-year-old without even saying goodbye?" Maya pulled her hand away from Nancy's. The color had drained from her face. "I made mistakes," Nancy admitted, her voice taking on that smooth, reasonable tone I remembered from childhood arguments with Dad. "But I'm trying to make things right. We're family." "Family?" I laughed, and the sound was ugly even to my own ears. "Family doesn't abandon each other. Family doesn't show up 2 decades later looking for a payday. Is that what you think this is about?" Nancy's eyes narrowed. "Money? Isn't it always?" Maya stood abruptly, her coffee untouched. "I need some air." We watched her hurry out, the bell above the door chiming in her wake. Nancy's mask slipped completely then, real anger flashing across her features. "You had no right," she hissed. "Maya doesn't need to know everything." "You mean she doesn't need to know the truth?" I leaned across the table. "What are you really after, Nancy? Because if you think you're getting a piece of Dad's business, the business is the least of it." Something in her tone made me pause. "There are things you don't know, Sutton. Things your father kept from you." Before I could respond, Maya reappeared, her eyes red but her spine straight. "I'd like to go now, Mom." Nancy stood smoothly, reaching for her purse. "Of course, darling." She placed a business card on the table. "When you're ready to hear the whole story, call me." I watched them leave, the card sitting between us like a loaded gun. Through the window, I saw Maya turn back once, her expression a mirror of my own confusion and hurt. The card stayed on the table long after they'd gone, its elegant script mocking me with possibilities and threats I wasn't ready to face. Lucas's call came at midnight, 3 days after Nancy's visit. I was closing up the diner, counting the day's receipts when my phone lit up. "You need to see this," he said without preamble. Check your email. I pulled up the message on my laptop, scanning the attached documents. Bank statements, loan applications, social media screenshots, all featuring my name. She's been using me as a character reference. My voice didn't sound like my own. For loans, not just loans. Lucas's keyboard clicked in the background. She's been telling people you're helping her start a restaurant consulting business, using your father's reputation to get investors. The receipt in my hand crumpled. How long? At least 3 months. Before Tom died. He paused. Sutton, there's more. She's been meeting with real estate agents, looking at properties, including the lot next to your 5th Street location. The world tilted sideways. Dad had tried to buy that lot for years, wanting to expand the diner. The owner had never been willing to sell. My phone buzzed with another call. Nancy. I switched back to Lucas. I'll call you back. Nancy's voice oozed concern when I answered. Sutton, darling, I hope I'm not calling too late. Cut the act. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, too bright, too harsh. What's this about you using my name for loans? A beat of silence. Your journalist friend has been busy. Were you ever going to tell me? Or just wait until the creditors showed up at my door? It's not what you think. Her tone shifted, became more businesslike. I'm trying to build something. A legacy for both my daughters. By stealing Dad's, by expanding it. Papers rustled on her end. I've secured funding for a new concept. Upscale diners, modernized classics. The investors are very excited about combining my expertise with your father's established brand. My laugh sounded hysterical, even to my own ears. Your expertise? In what? Abandonment? In business, Sutton. While you've been flipping burgers, I've been building connections. The kind that could take these little diners national. These little diners fed you for 10 years before you decided they weren't good enough. My free hand gripped the counter. Why now? Why come back at all? Another pause. I'm in trouble, she admitted finally. Some investments went bad, but this plan could save everything. We could work together, make it a real family business. Family business, I repeated. The words tasted like ashes. Is that what you told Maya? That you came back to play happy families? Maya doesn't need to know about the financial aspects. Her voice hardened. She's been through enough. Because of you. Because life is complicated. The crack in her composure was satisfying. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I left. But I'm trying to fix things now. The investors expect an answer by Friday. The answer is no. I started shutting off lights, needing to move, to do something. Stay away from my businesses. Stay away from me. Don't be hasty. The smooth tone was back. Think about Maya. About what this could mean for her future. She's your sister. She's your weapon, I snapped. Just like I was. The daughter you parade around when you need sympathy, then forget when something better comes along. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're broke, desperate, and looking for someone else to save you. Just like always. I reached the door, hand on the lock. If you come near my diners again, I'll press charges for fraud. Sutton, please. Real fear crept into her voice. I need this. They're going to take everything. They already did. I stepped into the night air, letting it cool my burning face. 19 years ago, I hung up before she could respond. My phone immediately lit up with text messages. Nancy, then Maya, then Nancy again. I ignored them all, dialing Lucas instead. I need everything you can find, I said when he answered. Bank records, business dealings, whatever she's been hiding. She's desperate, which means she's dangerous. Already on it. His typing resumed. What are you going to do? I looked back at the diner, at the neon sign Dad had installed himself 20 years ago. I'm going to protect what's mine, and then I'm going to make sure Nancy never hurts another person in this family again. The sign flickered once, like a wink, before steadying into its familiar glow. Somewhere in the city, Nancy was probably already planning her next move. But this time, I'd be ready. Maya showed up at the diner during the lunch rush, her designer clothes a stark contrast to the work-worn crowd. She slid onto a counter stool, hands clasped tight around her phone like a lifeline. I kept working, running plates and refilling coffee cups, letting her wait. Finally, when the rush thinned, I stopped in front of her. "Mum's missing," she said without preamble. The coffee pot nearly slipped from my hand. "What do you mean, missing? She didn't come home last night. Her phone's off. The hotel said she checked out yesterday morning." Maya's voice cracked. "The bank cards aren't working." I set down the coffee pot before I could drop it. "Have you called the police?" "I can't." She glanced around, lowering her voice. "There are people looking for her, bad people. She owes them money." Of course she did. I grabbed Lucas's latest email from under the counter, scanning the attachments. Credit card statements, loan documents, a string of bounced checks. "How much?" 300,000. Maya's eyes welled up. "At least that's what I found in her papers. There might be more." The number hit like a physical blow. That was almost what Dad had paid for his first 2 diners combined. "She left this for you." Maya pulled an envelope from her bag. Inside was a single key and a handwritten note. "Storage Unit 247, Central Storage. What you're looking for is inside. I'm sorry." My phone buzzed. "Lucas. Need to talk, now." "Stay here," I told Maya, heading for the kitchen. Lucas picked up on the first ring. "Nancy's been selling shares in your diners," he said without greeting. "Unofficial ones, under the table. Promising investors they'll be formalized once she reconciles with her daughter." The kitchen tiles seemed to tilt under my feet. "How many shares?" "About 40% total, split between 6 different investors." His voice hardened. "Dangerous people, Sutton. The kind who don't take kindly to being scammed." Through the pass-through window, I could see Maya hunched over the counter, looking impossibly young and scared, just like I must have looked 19 years ago, watching Nancy walk away. "The storage unit," I said suddenly. "She left a key to a storage unit. Don't go alone." "I won't." I hung up and returned to Maya. "Come on." The storage facility was 20 minutes away. Unit 247 was at the back, rust creeping up its metal door. The key turned with a grinding sound. Inside, stacked against the walls, were dozens of boxes labeled Tom's Diners, documents. My father's handwriting. In the center sat a small safe. "I know the combination," Maya said quietly. When I turned to her, she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom made me memorize it last week, just in case," she said. The safe opened with a click. Inside were more documents. The original deed to Dad's first diner, partnership agreements, old photos, and underneath it all, a thick manila envelope marked Nancy. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were newspaper clippings from 20 years ago, police reports, and a letter in Dad's handwriting dated just before his death. As I read, the pieces clicked into place. The real reason Nancy left. The money she'd stolen then, the partner she'd betrayed, the same partner who was now one of her investors. "Maya," I turned to her slowly. "Did Nancy tell you where she was going?" She shook her head, then hesitated. "But," she said, "if anything happened, I should tell you to check the safe deposit box at First National. Box 713. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. The text contained just an image. Nancy seated at a table with a newspaper showing today's date, looking terrified. A second message followed. "The debt must be paid. You have 48 hours. I looked at Maya, at the documents scattered around us, at the life my father had built that Nancy was now threatening to destroy. The choice crystallized, sharp and clear as broken glass. "Call Lucas," I told Maya, already heading for the door. "Tell him to meet us at First National. We're going to find out exactly what our mother's been hiding." The safety deposit box held one item, a USB drive wrapped in a note that read, "Insurance." Lucas's laptop hummed as he plugged it in. Maya and I crowded around him in the back office of the 5th Street Diner. "These are transfer records," Lucas said, scrolling through files. from 20 years ago. Your father's first diner was bought with stolen money. Evelyn's voice made us all jump. She stood in the doorway, looking older than her 51 years. Nancy didn't just leave you, Sutton. She ran. How did you get in here? I demanded. Your mother gave me a key years ago. She moved closer, eyes fixed on the screen. The night before she left, Nancy emptied the accounts of her investment firm. $3 million. Your father's diner was bought with part of that money, though he didn't know it at the time. Maya's breath caught. That's why those men have her. One of them was her partner back then, James Morrison. Evelyn's mouth twisted. He's been tracking her for years, waiting for the right moment. The name hit like a punch. Morrison Holdings, one of the investors Nancy had been selling fake shares to. My phone buzzed. Another photo of Nancy, this time with Morrison visible in the background, his face half turned away. The money's gone, I said. She can't pay them back. No. Evelyn pulled out a chair, sitting heavily. But you can. The diners, they were built with stolen money. Technically, Morrison has a claim. Like hell he does. The words came out in a snarl. Dad built this business with his own hands. With tainted money, Evelyn corrected. Nancy knew this day would come. That's why she came back now, trying to make deals before Morrison found her. Lucas was still scrolling through files. There's more. Tom knew Sutton. These letters. He found out about the money a year after Nancy left. He kept paying Morrison in secret, trying to protect you. The room spun. I gripped the desk, feeling the smooth wood under my fingers. Wood Dad had refinished himself. Every diner, every detail, had been his work, his dream, built on blood money. We have 36 hours, Maya said quietly. Before they... She couldn't finish. My phone buzzed again. Morrison. The diners or your mother? Choose. I could expose him, Lucas offered. These records would implicate Dad too. The realization tasted bitter. They'd seize everything during the investigation. The staff would lose their jobs. Everything Dad built would be destroyed anyway. Evelyn reached for my hand. I pulled away. Did you know? All these years, I helped her hide the money initially. Evelyn's voice cracked. I've regretted it every day since. But Tom, he was a good man, Sutton. He protected you the only way he knew how. The dinner rush was starting outside. I could hear the familiar sounds. Plates clinking, coffee brewing, the low hum of conversation. 20 years of memories in these walls. Maya, I turned to my sister. What else aren't you telling me? She flinched. Mum. She said if anything happened, I should tell Morrison about the offshore account. What offshore account? I don't know details, just that it exists. She said... Maya swallowed hard. She said it would solve everything, but you'd never forgive her. Another buzz. A video this time. Nancy speaking directly to camera. Sutton, baby, I'm so sorry. The account number is in your father's wedding ring. The one he never took off. I know you buried him with it, and I know what I'm asking. But please, I don't want to die like this. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering on the desk. Dad's grave. She wanted me to... I can't, I whispered. Then louder. I can't. Sutton. Lucas's voice was gentle. What are you going to do? Through the office window, I could see the evening crowd filling the diner. Regular people living regular lives, unaware that their favorite local restaurant was built on theft and lies. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. Sometimes the right choice feels wrong at first, kiddo, but you'll know it in your gut when it matters. I picked up my phone, hand steady now. Maya, call Morrison. Tell him I want to meet. I looked at the USB drive, at the evidence of 2 decades of secrets. It's time to end this, one way or another. The cemetery was silent except for the scrape of my shovel against earth. Each thrust felt like a betrayal. Each pile of dirt moved, bringing me closer to an unforgivable line. Lucas stood watch while Maya waited in the car. Neither had tried to talk me out of it. Maybe they understood there were no good choices left. The shovel hit something solid, Dad's casket. Someone's coming, Lucas whispered urgently. Headlights swept across the cemetery, settling on us. A black SUV pulled up, and James Morrison stepped out, followed by two men supporting Nancy between them. She looked smaller somehow, her designer clothes wrinkled, her makeup smeared. "I didn't expect you to actually do it," Morrison said, walking closer. "Tom's daughter digging up Daddy's grave. Nancy, you must be so proud." Nancy wouldn't look at me. "Sutton, baby, I'm so sorry." "Shut up." My voice sounded strange, distant. "You don't get to apologize. Not now." Morrison gestured to the partially excavated grave. "The ring?" My hands were bleeding from the shovel, dirt mixed with blood under my fingernails. "I want to see the account first. Prove it exists. Smart girl." He pulled out his phone, showing me a banking app. "The number in the ring unlocks this. 3 million plus 20 years of interest, enough to solve everyone's problems." He smiled thinly. "Almost everyone's." The casket lid was heavy. Inside, Dad looked like he was sleeping, his hands folded over his chest. The gold band gleamed in the SUV's headlights. "Don't," Nancy whispered. "Sutton, please. There's something you don't know." One of Morrison's men cuffed her across the face. The sound echoed through the cemetery. "The ring," Morrison repeated. I reached for Dad's hand. His skin felt like cold wax. "Wait." Maya's voice made everyone turn. She stood by the car, holding her phone. "I'm live streaming this to every news outlet in the state." Morrison's smile vanished. "Turn it off." "Make me." Her voice shook, but her hand was steady. "Everyone will see what you did, what you made us do. You stupid girl." He nodded to one of his men, who started toward Maya. I yanked the ring off Dad's finger. "Stop, I have it." Morrison held out his hand. I pulled back. "Let Nancy go first." "That wasn't the deal." "It is now." I held the ring over the open grave. "Or I drop it where no one will ever find it." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. His men released Nancy. She stumbled forward, but I stepped away when she reached for me. "The account number," Morrison demanded. I turned the ring over in my palm, finding the inscription inside. Not numbers, words. "I forgive you." My legs gave out. I sank to my knees beside the grave, laughter bubbling up like hysteria. "There is no account." "What?" Morrison grabbed Nancy. "Where's my money?" "Gone." Nancy's voice was barely audible. "It was gone before I left. I lost it all in the market crash. Tom knew. He forgave me, covered my tracks. The ring." She looked at me, tears cutting through her dirt-streaked makeup. "The ring was his message to you, not me." Morrison's face contorted. He pulled a gun from his jacket. "No," Maya screamed. The livestream phone clattered to the ground. The gunshot echoed like thunder. Morrison stumbled, red blooming across his chest. Behind him, Lucas stood with my father's old revolver, the one he'd insisted on bringing. Everything happened fast after that. Morrison's men fled. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Maya was crying. Nancy was babbling apologies, and I sat by my father's open grave, holding his ring, understanding finally what he'd tried to tell me. Forgiveness wasn't about the person being forgiven. It was about refusing to let their sins destroy you. "Sutton," Lucas touched my shoulder. "We need to go now." I looked at Nancy, huddled and broken on the ground, at Maya, trying to be brave, at the mess we'd made of everything. "What do we do?" Maya asked. I slipped Dad's ring onto my thumb. "We tell the truth. All of it. And then we start over." The sirens grew closer, red and blue lights painting the tombstones like stained glass. I stood up, ready to face whatever came next. Some things, once broken, couldn't be fixed, but maybe they could be rebuilt into something new. The police station's interview room felt smaller with each passing hour. Maya had been released after questioning, but Nancy and I remained, separated by a metal table and 19 years of lies. "Tell me about the fire," I said. Nancy's head snapped up. "What?" "The warehouse fire in '98. The one that killed Morrison's brother. I spread Evelyn's documents across the table. The one you started. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the papers. How did you... Evelyn kept everything. Insurance reports, witness statements. The money you stole wasn't just from Morrison's company, was it? It was hush money, to keep him quiet about what you did. You don't understand. Nancy's carefully maintained facade cracked. Robert Morrison was going to expose the company's illegal dealings. James would have lost everything. I was trying to protect our investments. By committing murder, it was supposed to be empty. Her voice broke. The security log showed no one there. Robert wasn't supposed to be working late. I twisted Dad's ring on my thumb. Did Dad know? When he was paying off Morrison, did he know what the money was really for? Tom figured it out eventually. She wouldn't meet my eyes. That's why he kept paying. Not to protect me, but to protect you. If Morrison exposed me, you would have lost everything. The diners, your inheritance, your reputation. Like you lost Maya's inheritance. The pieces clicked into place. That's why you came back. Maya's trust fund ran dry, and Morrison was closing in. You needed a new mark. I needed to protect my daughter. The words hit like a slap. I stood, chair scraping against concrete. I was your daughter too. Sutton, you let Dad spend 20 years paying for your crime. You let him die, thinking he had to protect me from the truth. And then you tried to steal everything he built. A knock interrupted us. Detective Chen entered with a fresh file. Mrs. Harrison, we've finished reviewing the live stream footage and your daughter's statement. Given the circumstances, we're prepared to offer a deal. Nancy straightened, mask sliding back into place. What kind of deal? Confess to Robert Morrison's murder and the subsequent fraud. In exchange, we don't charge Sutton or Maya as accessories in tonight's incident. You can't prove I started that fire. No. I pulled out my phone, playing the video from the cemetery. Nancy's confession about the money, about Dad covering her tracks. Maybe not. But Morrison's dead, and 3 witnesses heard you admit to stealing millions. How many years is that, Detective? 15 to 20, Chen said. Plus additional charges for the fake investments. Nancy's shoulders sagged. For the first time, she looked her age. If I confess, you'll leave the girls out of it? Chen nodded. I want to see Maya first. No. I gathered the documents, tucking them away. You don't get to manipulate her anymore. Sign the confession, go to jail, and stay away from both of us. You're just like him, Nancy whispered. Tom always thought he knew what was best for everyone too. Dad knew that love means protecting people, not using them. I moved toward the door. Sign the papers, Nancy. It's the last decent thing you can do for your daughters. Where are you going? To open the diner. It's almost breakfast time, and unlike some people, I keep my promises. I found Maya waiting in the lobby. Lucas beside her. She looked up as I approached, eyes red but clear. Did she sign? She will. I held out Dad's ring. This belongs to you too. The forgiveness part, I mean. Maya stared at it, then slowly shook her head. Keep it. I'm not ready to forgive her yet. But maybe. She managed a small smile. Maybe we could get breakfast, talk about what happens next. Yeah. I slipped the ring back on, feeling its weight like an anchor. I know a place that makes pretty good pancakes. We walked out together, leaving Nancy and her secrets behind. The morning sun was rising over the city, painting everything in new light. Sometimes, I realized, revenge isn't about making someone pay. Sometimes it's about choosing to be better than the person who hurt you. The morning rush filled Tom's classic diner with familiar chaos. I worked the grill while Maya handled the register, her designer clothes replaced by a worn apron. She'd picked up the rhythm quickly, like she'd been doing this her whole life. Between orders, I caught glimpses of the newspaper on the counter. Nancy's plea deal made headlines, though they got most of the details wrong. The truth was messier, harder to fit into neat column inches. Order up, I called, sliding plates across the pass-through window. Maya grabbed them, navigating the crowded diner with growing confidence. Lucas sat at his usual spot, laptop open, but he wasn't working. Instead, he watched Maya and me with a small smile, like he was witnessing something important. The bell above the door chimed. Evelyn walked in, holding a cardboard box. She looked uncertain, older, somehow, without her usual polish. "These were in my attic," she said, setting the box on the counter. "Tom asked me to keep them safe." Inside were photos, dozens of them. Me as a baby, Nancy holding me in front of the first diner, Dad teaching me to work the register. Family moments I'd forgotten existed. "There's something else." Evelyn pulled out an envelope, Dad's handwriting on the front. "For Sutton, when it's time." My hands shook as I opened it. "Kiddo, by now you know the truth about Nancy, about the money, about all of it. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you myself. Some burdens parents carry so their children don't have to. But here's what matters. Every dollar I paid Morrison was worth it. Not to protect the diners, but to protect your chance to make them your own. Your mother's mistakes don't define this family's legacy. You do. I've watched you grow into someone who chooses love over anger, even when it's harder. Who builds things instead of breaking them. That's worth more than any amount of money." The ring inscription wasn't just about forgiving Nancy. It was about forgiving yourself for whatever choices you had to make after I'm gone. Love, Dad. The breakfast rush quieted. Maya appeared beside me, reading over my shoulder. Her hand found mine, squeezed once. "He knew," she said softly, "about everything, and he still chose to protect both of us." I looked around the diner, the worn booths where families shared meals, the counter where regulars told their stories, the kitchen where Dad had taught me that food was just another way to say, "I care about you." "Table 7 needs coffee," I said, wiping my eyes. Maya nodded, understanding what I couldn't say. She moved through the diner, refilling cups, chatting with customers. They already loved her, just like they'd loved Dad, just like they might have loved Nancy if she'd chosen differently. Lucas closed his laptop. "You okay?" "No." I twisted Dad's ring, feeling its weight. "But I will be." The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, catching on the chrome fixtures, the coffee pots, the faces of people sharing meals and moments. Everything looked different now, clearer somehow. I picked up the box of photos, finding one of Dad standing proud in front of his first diner. His dream had started small, just good food and a place for people to feel welcome. The rest, the chain of diners, the legacy, the complications, came later. Maya returned with empty plates, already reaching for the next order. "Should we frame some of these? For the walls?" "Yeah." I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. But not all of them. Some memories we keep just for us. The dinner rush would start soon. There were supplies to order, staff to schedule, lives to rebuild. But for now, I stood in my father's diner, my diner, watching my sister work, holding proof that love sometimes survives even the worst betrayals. My phone buzzed, a message from the prison, Nancy asking to see us. Maya glanced over, questioning. I deleted the message without responding. Some doors stay closed, so others can open. "Ready for the dinner shift?" I asked Maya. She tied her apron tighter, determination in her eyes. "Ready." Together, we turned toward the kitchen, toward whatever came next. The past might write the headlines, but we would write our own story, one meal at a time.